Tuesday with licensed professional counselor Yunetta Spring.
Rickey Smiley Morning Show, Talking Out Tuesday. That means our phenomenal welcoming of licensed professional counselor Yunetta Spring back to the show. Good morning, Yunetta, who sometimes may drive a Jetta.
Please don't.
Yunetta, you there?
I'm here. Good morning.
Don't do the rhyming thing. Hey, you.
That was brilliant, right?
Hey,
it's all good. I'm gonna let you. I'm gonna let you hold that down, Brad.
Please forgive us for that, Yunetta.
It's okay.
All right, y'all. It's
So this
Talking Out
morning-
Tuesday. You got it.
This morning we wanted to have a mock therapy session with our very own Gary.
Huh?
So, Yunetta, can you share what to expect during your first therapy session with Gary with the T?
Well, first of all, is Gary okay with having a therapy session?
Yes, honey, I'm in therapy now. With y'all.
Okay.
All right.
Yeah, thank you for mentioning that, right? Because that's important, right? This is definitely not what a true traditional therapy session would look like, right? Because a traditional session, confidentiality is the foundation. And
Absolutely.
this is in no way, shape, or form confidential because we're on a nationally syndicated radio show.
Right.
But
We know all his business anyway, so it don't matter.
Right.
so Gary is giving us full consent to have this mock therapy session this morning. And you're free, Gary, to talk about whatever it is that you want to talk about. I feel like mainly what happens oftentimes is people avoid therapy because they don't know what to expect. And they put a lot of weight and pressure and, there's a lot of confusion around it. So I think just understanding like what you would expect in a typical first session could be helpful to help people know that it's not that big of a deal, right?
Exactly.
So how would it start? Would you ask Gary, like, what's wrong? Like, how would a session typically start?
Yeah, so a session starts with consent, right? There's paperwork that has to be filled out. Just you giving you a brief, rundown of how things are going to go and you giving your consent to be able to, share information with your therapist. That's explained when you come to the therapy session. So that little bit of what I said, that this is not confidential, your therapist would tell you that it is confidential. And then they will also tell you what things we can't keep confidential. And that is if you are saying you're going to harm yourself or if you're reporting the abuse of a child or you're, stating that a child is in danger or being harmed, or if you're saying you want to harm somebody else, right? So those are things that we're not allowed to keep confidential, right? Because safety comes before confidentiality.
Okay, so Gary, what you want to talk about?
Well, no, I want to be prompted. So if you're the therapist, prompt me, and then we'll go.
Yeah. So, Gary, what brings you in today?
Well, I don't know. I haven't been able to sleep at night. I've been having a lot of racing thoughts. I've been staying up late at night, and I was wondering, what was that about? Because the other day at school, which I'm gonna tell you what happened to me initially at school, it was like I just went. It's not berserk, so to speak, but I was like craving just sweets or whatever. I never forget. I went in the cafeteria and I was craving some sweets, so I was just trying to, eat all the cinnamon rolls in the damn cafeteria. So eventually they called my dad and had my dad come to pick me up from school. My dad was wondering, he asked me, was I on drugs or anything like that? Because, I had never done nothing like that before. So they took me to the doctor. And it's funny though, Yunetta, because one people got to realize bipolar could be diagnosed with like anything because they thought I had hypoglycemia. That's what the doctor initially said because, I guess from the way I was acting and the blood sugar and all, they thought, that's what was going on and blah, blah, blah. So nevertheless, my dad asked me was I on drugs and whatever. And I'm like, no, I'm not on drugs. So, but they diagnosed hypoglycemia. So it went from hypoglycemia to my mama getting up in the morning, making me breakfast every morning before I went to school and what have you and stuff. And it faded away, And then about maybe less than a year later, I had moved to Houston and I had another episode, where my friends found me wrapped up in a blanket in the corner. Because they hadn't heard from me in a couple of days, and they found me wrapped up in a blanket. So initially, they brought me to the hospital. Hell, when I woke up in the hospital, I was on the psych floor.
Wow.
How old you when that happened?
I was like 20. And then
20 when that happened.
Yeah, and then so I stayed in the hospital like for about a week or so, and then my parents came, got me out, and I went. The doctor, told them some things, honey, and and that's when I was diagnosed as bipolar. So I did that for a while, and I went good for a while, and then I moved to Dallas, and it happened again.
Wow. Okay.
But nevertheless,
for you.
Pardon?
Has been going on for a while. I said it sounds like this journey it's been a lot of up and downs. It's been going on for a while.
It's
From
been
when
going
you
on for
were
a while.
younger, with the eating, and now all the way up until now, it sounds like now you're having racing thoughts and having a hard time sleeping.
Yeah, well, now I'm not really, I just have to, but right now it's amazing I could control it because I've been through it so long. Because, initially when when they gave me the different medicines, I was on Cogentin, Escalate, and Narvane. I was walking down the street like a zombie.
Wow.
And my neighbors told my parents, y'all need to take him to another hospital. So they took me to another hospital. At least I took myself. I went to MHMR, mental health, mental retardation. And I went there and I, told the doctor, nevertheless, they changed the medicine. They put me on lithium. And I've been on lithium now for like 30 years.
Wow. Okay. So listen, y'all, this is good. Thank you, Gary, for sharing that with us.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Gary.
Right? That's huge, and I think it'll reach a lot of people who are confused about what's going on. The first time you go to the doctor, they may not be able to tell you exactly, what's happening right in that moment, and it may take a while for them to figure out exactly what's going on with you. Now we know a little bit more than we probably did back then, 20 years ago or so. So now we're more aware of what's happening. But that's just, our segment is probably almost up, so that's just like a brief, history that we got from Gary, right? A session is, your first session may be almost up to an hour, and the following sessions may be, it may take several sessions for us to kind of get to know and understand exactly what's going on, right? So I think one of the first things to be aware of is that therapy is it's like a conversation, but it's not a conversation. As Gary was talking, there are certain things that I'm listening for while he's talking. And if we had more time, I would be able to ask those questions just to get a clear depiction of exactly what he's dealing with and how I can help him.
Yeah. Well, the thing about it is therapy is so important. And that's one of the things that, we try to do on the show, is try to get people to get the help that they need and go to therapy and sit down and talk to somebody and have a conversation. And, because the brain is just like a muscle, and I just totally believe in it or whatever, so that's why I get kind of like, okay, don't send me a Bible scripture, send me a therapy, because God created therapists, So yeah, it's always good to pray for somebody and pray with people and give them Bible scripture. But man, let people sit down and heal the right way and get therapy.
Right.
Because we just trained to just deal with it, and Jesus will fix it. He'll work it out, and He will. But He created therapy. Hey, I appreciate you. Hey, let everybody know how you can be reached.
Yeah, you can find me at Springforth Counseling on Facebook and Instagram, and you can text Spring to 55444 to subscribe to my mailing list.
All right, there it is. Hey, one time for Counselor Yunetta Springs. Hey, thank you so much for joining us this morning.
No problem.